Gina had a lot of patience because not only was she dealing with the girls, but she was dealing with me. And I was not the easiest person to deal with early on in our relationship. There was an age gap. And so we had different ideas and thoughts about, just all kinds of things.
Apparently, Jim had not once, but twice had planned to ask me to marry him. And each time I blew him off, but I didn't know.
Take a girl and a guy, and they fall madly in love and form a family. Sprinkle in some counseling degrees and a doctorate, a dream of transforming relationships as we know it. And 20 years later, we give you power couple Dr. Ray and Jean Ketkodian. And this is their podcast, Couples Synergy.
Welcome again to another episode of Couples Synergy with Dr. Ray and Jean. Hi, I'm Dr. Ray.
And I'm Jean, and this is our podcast about love, marriage, and relationships.
Be sure to check us out online on our Facebook page and Instagram at Couples Synergy or our website, couplesynergy.com. And be sure to subscribe to our podcast or send us any suggestions on topics you'd like to hear more about. And now on to Couples Synergy, an in-depth look at love, marriage, and relationships, where we bring you our experience helping thousands of couples transform their relationships for nearly 20 years.
Every day we get to hear intimate details about a couple's celebrations, disappointments, and everyday challenges. We've often wished these stories were shared because we know we are more similar than different. So we've created not only an avenue where you can hear about people's intimate lives, but an atmosphere where people come over to our home pub, pour a drink, and share their stories.
People like today's guests, Jim and Gina, thank you so much for joining us on our podcast today.
Thanks
you for having us.
Yes.
So this is going to be, it's really, really fun actually for me because, Jim, we've known each other for quite a long time.
A very long time since we were little.
Right.
Yes, we were little kids.
And, so we've kind of, touched base every now and then throughout the years, but I don't think I've really understood your relationship story. And so I think that this is going to be really fun to kind of really get an insight into your lives.
Yeah, no, I think so too.
So maybe you guys, we can start with you guys saying how old you are and what do you do for a living?
Sure. So my name's Jim, obviously. I'm 47, and I'm executive director for Gateway Foundation. We're a not-for-profit substance use disorder treatment program located throughout the state of Illinois. We have multiple sites, so I oversee Aurora, Joliet, Skokie, Oak Lawn, and soon to be Downers Grove. So that's me.
And I'm Gina. I am 32, and I am a case manager with DuPage County Adult Protective Services. So we do investigations on elderly and adults with disabilities into abuse, neglect, and financial exploitation. So I have a lot of fun doing that.
And how long have you guys been together?
We've been together a little over 8 years and married for a little over 5 years.
Yeah.
Great. And can you tell us the story of how you met?
Sure. It's a little scandalous.
A little bit.
So Gina was interning for her graduate degree, her master's degree at Gateway. I wasn't supervising her.
Yes. He was a program director at that time, and
yes.
I was in a completely different program. So wanted to make that clear.
Yes. And so, we talked, actually I have Ray, you may know this, but I have a long interest and love for superheroes. I'm a collector of them. Since I was little, collected them, and, Gina started talking to me about that. I think that was our initial conversations. She really liked Batman, and I was really a big Superman fan. And so we started talking about our shared interests in that area, surprisingly. And then we met up, Buffalo Wild Wings.
Yes.
And I still remember the conversation because it started with, okay, I need to tell you right up front, I look really terrible on paper. That's how the conversation started. Because at that point I had gone through 2 divorces. I had 2 kids with different wives. And so my oldest, who's now going to be 22 in December, has cerebral palsy, and my middle child, Danny, who's 10, that was a very brief marriage, less than 2 years. There's a lot of reasons for why that didn't work out. And so I said to Gina, up front, I don't look good on paper. And this is, I have 2 kids from 2 marriages, and she was kind of in a relationship and kind of, it wasn't working out. And so I said, in order for us to go on a real date, you have to break up with your boyfriend. And she did.
Okay, yes. So that was a scandalous part. And Jim gives me a little bit more credit. I had an interest in him, so therefore I played up my interest in Batman a little bit more. So I was the one that was really, I don't want to say hunting him, but I was trying to go after him because I knew my one of my other interns that I was with, she was always talking about her supervisor was Jim and how great of a person he was and how caring he was. And so I was not in a good spot, quite honestly, myself with my relationship. And I think it was bad timing, but it was the right person. So that was a little fuzzy, but I did break up with my boyfriend at the time. And so then when we went out on a date, what was it, like 4 days later, I think that was the first thing I said. I was like, yep, we're good. I am single.
So the Batman thing, that was all a ruse then, right?
I do like superheroes, but yes, I played it up a little bit more just because I knew how much he loved superheroes as well.
Yeah, shortly after that, I realized that she didn't know quite as much as she led me to believe about that area.
Okay.
She found your kryptonite.
She did. There you go.
Well, I don't know if you know, but I am the foremost Batman fan right here.
No, you have to see my basement. I have all unopened figures on the walls. I have all kinds of Superman, Batman stuff. When I was 30, I got my first tattoo.
Oh, Superman tattoo
I knew
there.
right away what it had to be.
For a benefit, I actually dressed up in full Batman costume.
Oh, did you?
Yes, it was a golf benefit, and I had a Batman golf cart and everything. It was it was something to see. I have pictures of that. I'll have to show you that one day.
Yeah, there's a Facebook post that I love. It says, "My boss said dress for the job you want, not for the job you have. Now I'm sitting in a disciplinary meeting dressed as Batman."
That's awesome.
Our wedding was actually superhero themed. Instead of having a bride and a groom side, we had a Superman and a Batman side. We had all the tables instead of numbers were DC comic superheroes, so I know enough to know my superheroes.
Yeah, so we had a flash table, Superman, Batman, Green Lantern. Gina and I both had Superman capes. My daughter Danny had a Supergirl cape. My daughter Maddie had a Superman cape. So
that's awesome.
Yeah.
And what was it about the other person that you fell in love with?
Well, honestly, I've never met anyone like Gina. So she, to come into a situation like mine with 2 older kids, one with special needs, with a disability, and to be as caring and as just loving and as sweet to me and to the kids. And, fast forward 8 years later, it's the same. I know for some people, maybe that doesn't last, but that has always been the case. And, we joke about the superheroes thing, but when we got engaged, I said to her, and it's true, she saved me in way more ways than I could have ever saved her.
That's nice. Kind of the same for me. My experience with relationships was a lot more limited, but still I didn't have great experiences. So meeting someone like Jim, who really had an interest in me as a person and really cared for my well-being. I remember when we met at Buffalo Wild Wings and we were both just laying it on the table. We kind of joke it was our pre-date interviews with each other. But, he said that even if we don't work out, even if we're not dating, that he's like, you deserve to be treated with respect. You deserve to be taken out on dates and, all of that. So just the care and concern that was genuine and that type of compassion. I just could tell that he was such a good soul. And I knew that he was a great dad already to the girls. So, when fast forward thinking about like who I wanted to be with and have a family with, Jim checked all the boxes for me. So
now, Gina, you didn't have any kids going into the relationship, right?
correct. Yeah.
So what was that like for you? Now potentially looking at, add water instant family.
Yeah, so I'm gonna be honest. It was a learning curve. So not only did he have, I'm stepping into a family dynamic that was even a little bit more complicated, not only because there is an older daughter with a special needs, but then just the dynamics of having to kind of deal with two ex-wives. And so that was a different play. And we do have an age gap. There is around a 15-year age gap. So when we started dating, I was in my early 20s. And so I think a lot of that was me as well trying to come into my own. So honestly, for me, it was really learning about how to be an adult, kind of be, put other people first and be just the things that, as a mom, you learn when they're little itty bitty and then they grow with you and then you step in and there's an almost teenager and a toddler and the moms are, still in the picture. They're wonderful moms to the girls and having to make sure that, I don't step on anybody else's toes and like that. It took a lot of, I don't know, it took some time to kind of, for me to learn how, just how to interact and how to deal with things. Cause I'm a very type A, I like things a specific way. So just even stepping back and just saying, it's okay that, they have parents and I need to enjoy my time with the girls and define my relationship with them. And now that I know my relationship, I have a great relationship with both of the girls. I'm still more of a friend versus a parental figure, which is what they need. So just, again, trying to find my place on where is my place now in this family. I think it did take, it takes a while to form, but I was open to learning, and obviously we make some mistakes, and Jim and we talked about it whenever those came up, and it's a learning experience, definitely.
And Gina had a lot of patience because not only was she dealing with the girls, but she was dealing with me. And I was not the easiest person to deal with early on in our relationship. There was an age gap. And so we had different ideas and thoughts about, just all kinds of things because that age gap was substantial. And then I had 2 kids. I was recently, divorced. My littlest one was barely 2. So, the good news is fast forward, Danny doesn't remember a time in her life, my daughter Danny, without Gina. Gina's always been there from the beginning as far as Danny remembers. Maddie was older, of course. So, and Maddie's mom and I had been divorced for 4 years at that point. And so we had a good relationship, her mom and I. We kind of grew apart over time, but we still really worked hard at co-parenting Maddie and, supporting her and helping her, manage her disability. But Danny's mom and I wasn't the same at that point. It was really rough still. And so Gina was coming in at a time where I was overwhelmed and really trying to manage those 2 girls and still trying to protect the time with Gina. And that was hard because there'd be some weekends where, the girls would be with me on the same weekends and on Wednesdays and Thursdays every week. But then there were some weekends where something came up and maybe I needed to have Danny with me that second weekend when it was supposed to be just Gina and I, or Maddie needed to be there and because her mom had to do something. And so it was hard at first. And especially, with Maddie having cerebral palsy, only her mom and I primarily could manage her in terms of toileting and just different things that come along with having a special needs kid. So introducing Gina to that and, again, now fast forward, Gina helps me with a lot of Maddie's needs from, helping her. She's now almost 22. She's a young woman. So with showering and different kinds of things, Gina's there because even though I'm her dad, she's a young lady, and she doesn't want her dad doing those things. So we had to learn a lot and grow together. And even though Gina came into this without any kids, she was fantastic as far as a step parent could be. And even before we were married, taking on responsibilities that, quite honestly, if I was in her shoes, I wouldn't have. I don't know if I would have been able to do what she did.
It's interesting listening to you guys. It sort of echoes our beginning of our relationship. I'm 6 years older than him, and he was 24 and my son was 10. So you had that learning curve as well. So I'm just going to jump into this because of, what you guys do for a living. And I know you guys think about this kind of stuff. Ray and I both had a series of really unhealthy relationships before we met. And we both began a really big healing journey around those things in order to get to where we are in our relationship, which is why we're so passionate about working with relationships. Can you guys speak to your histories and how did you get to this place where you can finally have this healthy relationship?
Yeah, my history is much more extensive, obviously. I was young when I was in my first marriage. I got married in 1998. I was in my early 20s, and Maddie came at a time where prior to this career, I went to the FBI Academy. I was a special agent for the DEA, and so I went to the FBI Academy, did a lot of that, but then came back. And then Maddie was born, and she had 2 strokes within her first 10 days of life. And it was a really challenging time. And, her mom and I did the best we could managing that. Looking back, we were both just young kids trying to figure out what to do and how to handle a situation that it's hard enough to be a parent at that age, much less now you have a child with special needs that you're not sure is going to walk or talk, because we weren't sure what to expect at that point because Maddie was so little. And, that was a difficult time. And, over the time of that relationship, we kind of grew apart and we became joint caretakers almost of Maddie. And our relationship wasn't the same because we both had responsibilities, and it just impacted the way we saw each other and the roles we were in. I came out of that relationship we got divorced in 2007. We were married in 97. So I came out of that relationship being ready to prove to myself that I could have a good relationship, and I made some bad choices, honestly. And this has nothing to do with my second marriage. It was previous to that. I made some bad choices in terms of getting involved in relationships, being in the substance use field. I got involved in a relationship with someone who struggled with an alcohol use disorder. And that was a difficult relationship for me. And it really tore me apart in a lot of ways. And I still had a young daughter at that time who was 8. And she really didn't want to be a part of that. And I was, I think, intent on trying to save her at that point. And it really created a lot of difficulties for me. And then, I jumped into that relationship, didn't work. And I jumped into a relationship with my second wife. And, she, quite honestly, we started dating in March. And at the end of April, she told me she was pregnant. And it happened that quickly. And Danny was born in December. And we barely knew each other. But, at the time, she had older kids. So she had kids that were 16 and 18. And I had Maddie, who was 10. Was she 10? So right around there at the time. And, we got married because I thought that was the right thing to do, because a kid was coming. And, she really did not want to have the kid have Danny without us being married. So we got married, but we didn't know each other. And she was in a very, very different life place than I was. And she had her own challenges with her daughters. And I had my challenges with Maddie and her disability. And, she moved in, and fast forward almost a year and a half after Danny was born, she moved out with her daughters because had things that she needed to do, and our lives were just not gelling. And so, I came out of that marriage and, quite honestly started dabbling in dating, and, it was really challenging for me. And I almost had given up, honestly. There was a time where I remember talking to a friend of mine and saying, I just can't. And my mom too, I was really close to my mom and telling her, it's not working. I don't feel like I know how to date. I feel like I've been in relationships, of course, but I don't know how to date. And, I met Gina, as we talked about earlier, and even our early relationship was challenging. Because I was so insecure, I was really controlling. Because I was insecure, and things like friends and male friends and all kinds of that stuff I didn't do well with at all. And I honestly, looking back, I don't know how she's still here, because I should have pushed her. I didn't do anything, physically or anything like that, but emotionally I was really controlling and sometimes over the top. And, I certainly could have pushed her away with those behaviors in hindsight, but somehow she wrote it out with me. I think, and she was, the coolest thing about Gina is, and it's something that I'll always hold with me, is, my mom and dad are gone now, but they got to be with Gina for quite a few years, and they really loved her, and she was really close to them. And at the end, she helped me. I wasn't there to take care of my dad because I was working. She would be there taking care of my dad who died of cancer, and she would go by and stop by and see my mom. Those are things that I could never repay her for. So.
What was that like for you, Gina? Coming into this relationship, and what past relationships had influence, on you?
Well, as Jim touched on, he said that he was insecure coming into our relationship, and I was as well, insecure. And I don't know, I quite honestly don't even know how we got to the point now where we're very secure. The difference between our relationship now and when we first got together, we kind of laugh about it. We're like, yeah, we probably shouldn't have done that. But, I think just knowing what our issues were, recognizing them, talking through them, and again, supporting each other and helping the other person out, just wanting to help Jim, just help him versus trying to help him because it's going to benefit me. I think that really has aided in getting us into a really healthy spot where we are right now. But yeah, in the beginning, I had a poor self-image, low self-esteem. And so I kind of just was with, a guy because he said he liked me and I didn't see any other choices. And then in my head, it was, well, it's better to be with someone, instead of being alone, because obviously all the messages we see are, if you're with someone, then that means you're desirable or it's okay. And if you're not with someone, if you're single, then you're unwanted. So, again, the low self-esteem, being insecure. And then so coming into our relationship, I think I probably dealt with it, maybe more than I should have, but it really, we talked it out. I'm used to, Jim is 100% Sicilian, and some of it is a cultural thing. And I grew up in a Sicilian household. So things that some people may view as overly controlling or, just, the yelling or, well, you never yell, but, just sort of the more aggressive in your face kind of attitude. To me, that didn't scare me off, because that's just how family gatherings are. You just get together and everybody else and nobody's mad. It's just, hey, this is what we're doing. And so I kind of could empathize and I understood. And, just having that knowledge and understanding where he was coming from, because Jim was very self-aware of what was going on within him. And so he would, say that, yeah, because of my relationships in the past, this is what I'm struggling with right now. And then I had time to reflect on myself, and I was able to communicate that with Jim. And so we were both understanding of what motivated our behavior. We communicated that with each other, and then that helped both of us gain understanding and work towards, being in a better spot. I really think that that's what helped me stay, is because I had someone that was so self-aware and knew what the issues were that he had that, that we had together. So.
I just want to say thank you guys so much for sharing that part of your story, because this is exactly what we try to tell people, that relationships are really developmental. And your guys, both of your paths are super normal, and, as a young girl, we have these needs of attention, affection, acceptance, appreciation, allowing, that comes from a book called How to Be an Adult in a Relationship. And the first way we try to get those needs met is by being coyish. And our bodies change, and all of a sudden we're getting some needs met. And it's not usually from someone who has our best interests at heart. But you can clearly see that the law of attraction of like attracting like, none of us are perfect, but you guys each attracted each other and figured out how to grow through those things, through the wounds and the insecurities. And it's that piece that's the hope, right? That you can be honest in a relationship and you can care about another person and help them heal. That's awesome.
And most people aren't aware that when you first go into a relationship, you create a parent-child type of dynamic. And that is a normal process that every couple goes through. And every couple is challenged to break through that and to evolve into the adult-adult relationship. And that takes going through a lot of the past wounds, right? Everything that you bring into your current relationship and processing that between the two of you. And, most couples, they shy away from those emotional wounds, whereas it's really important to be able to lean into it so that you can have that conversation and communication and understanding and compassion. And that's really the only way that couples are then able to evolve, into that next stage of a relationship, which sounds like that's what you guys were able to push through into.
Yeah, the first few years definitely were challenging, not because, I love Gina as much then as I do now, but we didn't know each other. And the age gap and just the fact that I had the two kids, we were just in different, it was just a learning curve for both of us. And we needed to meet in the middle. And there was a parent-child thing, dynamic going on with me in that parental role, because one, I was in a parental role. Two, there was an age gap, right? And three, I was
personality-wise too. He's just a lot more, this is what we're gonna do, and I'm more okay. Sounds good. So we needed to meet in the middle. But Gina's, even today, the way Gina, and I hate to use the word handles me, the way she handles me is exactly what I need. Like she knows where. I get, and then, okay, let's give him a few minutes and then let's talk it through, or allow me to come back like, I'm sorry, let's figure this out. And it's challenging now because we have the two little kids, and, Vinny's 3 and Ellie's 1, and they're awesome, but we don't have a lot of supports outside of the house. So Gina's, dad has a lot of medical needs, and her mom's there today at our house. We're in Joliet, so we're just a few minutes from where we're doing this podcast from. So she's watching the kids, but we don't have that opportunity a lot. So it's hard to get time to ourselves. We're like my brother and his wife, they could go out on more dates or go to dinners or do different things where it's more challenging for us to do those kind of things.
It's kind of funny. Your guys' early dating sounds like Batman versus Superman movie.
Yeah, it was kind of like that.
Yeah.
Can you guys tell us the story of how you got engaged?
Yeah.
You should tell it.
No, you should. Okay. Well, apparently Jim had not once, but twice had planned to ask me to marry him. And each time I blew him off, but I didn't know. So it was, what was it? I forget. One time I was like, sorry, my hair appointment ran late. I'm not going to be home until late. And then he got upset. And I'm like, what is going on? And then it was a few days later, I think we were supposed to have dinner again or something. And I said, sorry, my mom wants me to have dinner over there. And there was another little tip. And I'm like, what is going on with him? Why is he getting a little upset with me? And then, what was it? Then it was finally on like a Friday, and, in the basement is where he has all of his superhero collection. So you take it from there.
To rewind it a little bit, when Gina and I first started talking, and then we were talking, outside of work by phone, I was telling her a lot about, the collectible stuff I had in my basement since we started talking about superheroes to begin with. And I showed her, I think I took some pictures of the stuff in my basement and sent it to her. This was before she came by the house, of course, or got to see any of it. So I decided that, because it's all centered around that and superheroes, that, I brought her down to the basement. It sounds really creepy, but I brought her down to the basement where the superhero stuff was, and I was showing her some stuff, and then I wrote her this really long letter, and it called her my Lois Lane, and how much she even though she was that, she saved me more than I could save her. A lot of the stuff I was saying earlier, and then but when she finished reading it, I was down on one knee with the ring. So, and then I proposed to her.
But the letter was propped up in between, I think, the Superman and the Batman doll, because he's the action figure. Sorry, action figure. No, because it's a doll. But it was a stuffed one. Whatever. Yeah. And then we went to Buffalo Wild Wings because that's when we had our first.
Yeah, so after she said yes, we went to Buffalo Wild Wings, which was the same place we had our first meeting. So
yeah.
How did you guys navigate introducing Gina to the kids?
Yeah, that was, Danny's first meeting of Gina and her mom was at Build-A-Bear. We were in the mall, and we decided maybe Gina and her mom would come out, and I had met her mom already, of course, and her family, but she hadn't met the kids yet. And so, I told Danny that a friend of mine was going to be coming to the mall too, and so we were in Build-A-Bear, and they came in. They had just gotten coffee at Glory Jeans or something like that, and so Danny got to meet her there. Maddie met you for the first time there too, right?
Yeah, both of them.
Yeah, and so it was really informal, brief. It wasn't lengthy. And then after that, we started introducing the kids more slowly to her, and had her come over for a little bit, and then she would go home. And, so it was a while before, because when the kids were with me on the weekends, it would just be me and them. It was a while before, Gina stayed over or anything like that.
Yeah, the whole time. Yeah. That was a long time. And then on Wednesdays, Jim would always bring the girls over to his parents' house to have dinner and hang out there. And so I think it was pretty much Wednesdays where I would also be over there as well. And then I would go home too. So yeah, it was just slowly, little by little bit, we'll just kind of increase the time. But when we did first meet, it was on like mutual or common grounds, I guess, at the mall, or neutral grounds, I should say. So kept it very brief. And I think Danny was more interested in going into the Disney store, if I remember right, because she wanted another doll.
Yeah. So it was a transition, but, fast forward, I'm glad we did it that way because, Maddie was a little bit older, but Danny being as little as she was, Danny, fast forward now at 10, is very protective of Gina. Danny has her mom, and that's her mom, of course. But, Gina, she tells Gina things she wouldn't tell me. Yeah.
How was the adjustment with the girls' moms? Any issues with that?
No, yes. So my oldest, Maddie's mom, we had been divorced for a while. So, Pam and Gina, for the most part, got along pretty quickly.
The age was my age, how young I was still, I think in the beginning, a little bit of an issue, which I would understand. I'm like 11 years older than Maddie. And so that was, I think more of a shock. But then as she got to know me, that I think that quickly settled.
Yeah. But Danny's mom and I, that was still, even though we weren't together very long, we struggled, and that was much harder. It took a long time, but now, Gina picks Danny up, she drops her off. It's fine now, but it took some time. And
what percentage of the conflicts that you guys had early on in the relationship would you say you can attribute to blended family issues versus just, pertaining to your relationship?
Definitely were blended family issues, but not to the extent, honestly, looking back, knowing, what could have happened or what could have been issues weren't really issues. I mean, we didn't really have issues around like parenting the kids. I don't know. That's a better question for you, probably.
Yeah. And quite honestly, I don't even think I would go as far to call them issues. I think added stressors would probably be the more accurate term, just because, as Jim touched on earlier, it's like if I were, we're supposed to be like going out to see a movie, but then something happens with, Maddie's mom, and now we have to take Maddie. And then it was just realizing, okay, I need to be more flexible. And that wasn't on Jim or the girls or the girls' mom. That was just me learning to be flexible and, again, having to kind of grow up and become the adult. There was an argument between, Jim and, one of the girls' moms because of, I don't know, whatever it could be. And that I could see that sometimes, and that could spark maybe an argument about something else between us, just because then we're both in a soured mood because of that external stressor. But I don't honestly.
Well, and then along the way, as Gina was doing that, I also learned that I needed to protect our time. I love the girls very much, and my time with the girls as their dad was really important. But I also needed to learn, which took some time because I would feel extremely guilty about the fact when the girls weren't with me, if I was, spending time with Gina at first and the girls needed something, of course I would drop everything and go do that. But I also learned, as much as I needed to do that, that I also needed at times to protect my time with Gina. And so we would do things like, on the weekends, I wouldn't have the girls, we went to Las Vegas for a few days once, and then we went to the Bahamas for a few days, and we timed it where I dropped the girls off on Thursday, and then we left, that Friday morning, and then we came back Tuesday night. And on some of the weekends when, maybe one of the girls' moms had something and asked if I could do, take the girls, most of the time I would, but there were a few occasions where I can't this weekend. It's, because it wasn't my weekend necessarily. But I wanted to make sure I protected time with her because I knew that, that also there had to be a balance.
How soon into the relationship and how did you know that this was your person?
I knew pretty quick, honestly.
I knew before I dated him.
Oh.
No, seriously. Because I felt like what I heard and what I've seen, because being in the work type environment, you get to see someone, instead of just meeting them wherever. And so I knew a lot about him already. And then within the first day that we actually spoke with each other, I knew. So.
Yeah. And me too. And it's funny because it seems cliche, honestly, when you meet the right person, and, the age gap was substantial. We were in different places. I had kids. She didn't. I'd been married. She hadn't. But none of that really mattered. There was something deeper there that surface stuff didn't really matter. And that deeper piece shined through right away. And she, everything clicked. She connected to my parents, my family. She said earlier, culture, Sicilian family, and Ray, this, you hung around, you spent time with us quite a bit. I remember still my friends coming over being like, why is your dad yelling? I'm like, what are you talking about? He's in a good mood. This is how he talks. She would come over to the house. The dog would be barking nonstop. My dad's dog, he had a Shih Tzu, bark, 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 bark. My dad would be screaming at me. I'd be screaming at him. Not in anger, just because that's just how we talked. And she was totally comfortable there. Like most people be like, forget this, I'm out of here.
Yeah, I'm having flashbacks right now.
Yes, I'm sure you are.
But it's not an exaggeration. Literally, the moment we got there until we left, that dog would be barking. It would not stop. So yeah.
You'd be. We're not surprised to hear that you guys knew right off the bat. And cliche or not, couple after couple that we interview, they all say the same thing.
The ones that are in the real relationship. Yes,
the ones that are in the successful and happy, and those that talk about their divorces too. They knew
that they shouldn't get married. What advice would you guys have for someone that was considering being in a blended family or dating somebody with children?
I think you really need to be committed. I've heard too, time and time again, that as silly as it sounds, people are like, oh, I like this person a lot, but they just have a kid. And it's like, listen, if you don't love that child, if you can't see yourself with that person, then you need to not pursue that relationship, because there are going to be struggles. And a lot of times when you walk into a blended family, those struggles and those issues that you're already going to have in a relationship are going to be amplified, and it's going to take that much more work sometimes to really get through so that you can have a healthy and wonderful blended family. So yeah, I would say you need to be committed, and if not already, you really need to gain some self-awareness on where are your strengths and where are your faults within yourselves, and how you need to work on yourself. I am really indebted to the girls, quite honestly, because I feel that because of my relationship with Jim and with them, I have grown so much. I don't even feel like I know the person I was 8 years ago. And I don't think if I was in any other relationship, I would be here, because they pushed me in such a healthy and a positive way. And those growing pains were short-lived to be where I'm at now. So I really think that, the commitment and the dedication to be, with that person and with the kids, that has to be there to make it work 100%.
And Gina had to make some sacrifices along the way, without getting into it too much. But there was a friend of hers from work who she ended up having to end a friendship with, because her friend said, those are not your kids. You don't need to take care of them. You don't need to do this. You can go out. You don't need to be there. And that was a tough spot to be in. But those are, as far as Gina's concerned, yes, the girls, she's not the girl's mom, but those are her kids. And she had to tell her friend that, and it really ended that friendship, unfortunately.
That was a defining moment for me, because and I think that was one of our bigger issues in the beginning of our relationship, was I didn't have a lot of cousins or siblings around my age. So I put a really heavy importance on friendship. And Jim having a lot of cousins and siblings around his age, it was the more importance was on family for him. And obviously then having kids, it was, well, if you're with me, we have family time. You can't leave me, I'm talking like when we were months into dating, it's like, you can't just leave to go hang out with your friends. If you're going to be with me and with a part of this family, this is what, where you need to be. And then so making that decision, and then having a friend that, kept saying those things to me, I had to make that choice. Okay, am I choosing my friend, or am I choosing my relationship? And I said as much to my friend. I said, this is a boundary. You keep crossing it. If you're asking me to choose, I'm choosing Jim and my kids. So, sometimes you have to make sacrifices, and you have to make life-changing decisions. And I saw that as a turning point for me. And I have zero regrets. I would do it again sooner, quite honestly.
Yeah, I've said many times before that the power of a step parenting relationship is choice. The fact that you don't have to be that person, for the kids, but the fact that you choose to, that is the defining, factor in that relationship. And there's the power there behind it. So, kudos to you. I'm a stepdad myself, so I know exactly what that feels like. But yeah.
And you lost some friends over it too.
And I did lose some friends over it. Yeah.
So last question. What is it that your partner does that you know they love you?
Gina, well, for me, Gina always makes time for us. We're both really tired when we get home, and, the kids are little. So, having a toddler, baby, it's really hard to find time. She also makes sure to give me some time, even though she's with the kids. So she's working from home right now and has been since this COVID pandemic started. I'm not. So I'm at the center every day. And she's with the kids all day, and it'd be really easy just for me to come home and be like, okay, I've been with the kids all day. Here you go. I need a break. But she really balances that well. And even though she's been with them all day, she'll give me time to decompress. And sometimes the hardest part for me, because in my job, and you guys probably can relate to this too, all I do every day is talk all day from the beginning of my work day to the end. So sometimes when I get home, the last thing I want to do is talk. And, she has a lot to say, and she's a talker, and she wants to tell me about the day and what's gone on. And sometimes it's hard for me to be present in that place when I first get home, but she's patient with me. And, she just always cares about how I'm feeling. And I've never experienced that before. So.
Sweet. Well, for me, I can't really even count the ways. There is not a day that goes by, even when we're having an argument with, quite honestly, I can't even remember the last time that we've had a fight. We are really great at communicating our needs and, our viewpoints with each other. But even when I can tell he's a little irked at me or something, I still know that he loves and cares about me. I think the biggest thing is Jim is not an animal person, and that's putting it lightly. And so for the fact that we have a dog, and we do not have any dog, we have a very annoying, misbehaved dog that constantly pushes out the fence post. And so he has to take 20 minutes to hammer it back in. Just the fact that he puts up with it. And I can tell that he doesn't like the dog, that he's happier when the dog isn't here, but he knows that I'm happier when the dog is here, and he's adjusted to it. And he even goes so much sometimes, I think he'll try to give him food and, just try to interact. I know he does it just for me. I've never experienced that before. Quite honestly, I don't think I could return the favor, because having a pet in the home makes me happy. And to say, okay, you're never going to have a dog again, I'm not sure I could do that. But for Jim, he would be really happy to not have to deal with the stress of a pet, but he deals with it day in and day out, and deals with a difficult pet just because he loves me. That's huge. I can't even describe.
Well, the other thing I'll say as we were wrapping this question up is, where it's important for us to say we love each other. I don't know a day goes by that we don't say I love you. We don't kiss. We don't, make sure that we're taking care of each other, both, emotionally, psychologically, and physically, right? Intimately, and making sure that we have that time together. And, the other thing is just being, and Gina brought it up at the beginning, this being respectful to each other. And in the 8 years that we've been together, 8+ years, we've never sworn at each other or called each other names like that. And not to say, or really even yelled at each other. We've had our arguments, but it's been respectful. And, we've just really, that was different for me than, other relationships I've had. And it's been like that for a long time now. So
that is awesome to hear, guys.
Yeah.
Hopefully your dog doesn't bark consistently though, right?
Not as bad, bad, but if you see a squirrel, then yeah.
That was why it was so funny for me because my dad, I never grew up with a pet. I barely had a fish for a week if I could keep it alive. And all of a sudden, when my dad hit, 70, he decided he wanted a dog. We never had animals. And then we went from no animals to he had a dog in his house that barked consistently. And then Gina was a dog person. So I reluctantly agreed. She told me when we first started dating, if she was to move in with me, that I would have to accept her Nina. That was her Rottweiler. Her name was Nina. And, so I did. And, that was tough for me because I don't connect well to animals. It's foreign to me. It's hard for me to do. Some people, it comes very naturally. That's not me. And so it took some adapting to, but yeah, I would, and I know when this dog, if something ever happens, we'll have another one. And that's just how it is.
Well, Jim and Gina, we want to thank you so much for being on the podcast today. This has been quite a treat.
Well, thanks for having us. It was great to see you guys.
People have been sharing their stories since the beginning of time to bond and heal and grow. And we hope that by you guys sharing your story, it's enriched your lives and the lives of our listeners.
Thank you. We appreciate being able to share that with you.
We want to wholeheartedly thank you for joining us today and for listening to Couple Synergy. Our passion is in helping couples and people have happy and healthy relationships, and this podcast gives us a fun way of bringing our knowledge and expertise to you, our listeners. For all of you listening, please subscribe to our podcast and please leave us a review. If you have any questions, comments, or topic suggestions, please email us at contact@couplesynergy.com. For more information about Couple Synergy and our programs, such as the Couples Weekend Intensive and our premier program called Couple to Couple, look us up online at couplesynergy.com.
And if you know someone who can benefit from this episode, please download it and share it. And thank you for listening.
Until next time, synergize your life and synergize your love.
You have been listening to Couple Synergy with Dr. Ray and Jean Ketkodian. Couple Synergy was recorded, edited, and produced by Dr. Ray and Jean Ketkodian. Voiceover and music entitled Breathe and Let Go was recorded and composed by Gina Gonzalez.